Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to do a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is you want me to check out. Today's special selection comes out as from Billy. Check out Godowsky's Passacaglia by Siirala. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest solo piano pieces ever written, and Siirala's interpretation is perfection. So Godowsky is the composer, Siirala is the performer of the composition. Um, a Passacaglia is a type of composition that has heavy bass ostinato, is typically fairly serious, and is commonly played in triple meter. The bass ostinato, an ostinato, as I've said many times in the past, is kind of like what a guitar riff is. It's a repeated structure. So we're probably going to hear some repeated ideas in the left hand while the right hand plays over them. We have the Passacaglia for like 13 minutes or something, and then we move into an epilogue, and then our final 4 minutes are a fugue, and a fugue is basically just a lot of counterpoint. Both hands are going to be presenting different melodies at the same time. So, we have 19 and a quarter minute. That's a weird way to phrase that, Bryan. 19 minutes, 15 seconds of some seems to be fairly dense classical music. It looks like we have the sheet music with us. It is busy, and my sight reading is a bit rougher than it was when I was still in education for this, so let's see what kind of read I can get out of this. Let's dive into this and see what Godowsky's bringing to the table today. Got a bit of a chromaticism on top of this heavy, melancholic atmosphere. I'll be honest, I have never seen sheet music with all these numbers. I assume they're denotating the time signatures because we didn't start with a meter at the beginning of this piece. See, now we're in the double P section. That's pianissimo, that's very quiet. We just hit mezzo piano in our left hand, piano in our right hand. Poco crescendo. The left hand's going to get slightly louder over the course of this. It's going to come back down. Triplet ideas on it almost looks like Do we have a fermata in that last bar? The first bar on this page says a tempo, which is return to, but I don't remember a fermata or any tempo markings. A lot of room for dynamic expression, both attempting to find the composer's intent and the performer's voice. I've noticed the numbers only go up to 5, and I wonder if those are... Yeah. I don't think they are. I was wondering if they were notes of which digit to use to hit the note. But no, I'm going to say definitely not based on some of these other markings. I don't know what those are. Yeah, it's really interesting to have pulled out of all of that negativity at the beginning. Oh, that rhythm. You see in the top right, we hit, well, change page, it said non-legato. These are just really specific strikes. Legato is when everything kind of flows, and this is the opposite of that. This chromatic descending. We just shifted keys. Yeah, look, we have 5 sharps now, which is most of them. That's those hashtags over on the left telling us which notes we should be sharping so that they don't have to put a sharp indicator, the hashtag, on every single F, for instance. It feels very uncertain here. Like an element of spiraling. lot of darkness on the lower ends. Here's one of those ostinatos. You can see the repeated element on the second, the bottom, the bass clef. Oh, holy cow. We're so far into this. What are we at, like 8 minutes already? 8.5. Feels like we just started it. Now it's interesting, we descended, we spiraled, we had a really nice glissando up to this majestic moment, and now we're back to being quiet and like lots of chromaticism, tons of accidentals. We're basically in a key but not a key with how often we're adding notes from outside of it. Oh geez. What was that? There is a random treble clef in the middle of the bass clef line. I guess that's when the left hand goes high enough to hit those, or it tells your left hand to go up to those, possibly. Oh, that was gorgeous. That was a lot of notes in a very small amount of time. Oh, we got a rapido upcoming. Yep, to rapidly get into this next section with a double forte. There's so many like minor volume changes, moment to moment. A mezzo forte into a piano, into a forte that crescendos into a double forte, like, I don't know, like 4 beats back to back. Double piano to double forte right here. It's so emotive just from the volume alone. What a fun rhythm. See, here's one of our bass ostinatos again. "64th notes. Another chromatic descent. This is really interesting because there's a mixed emotion here where one hand is presenting a bit of a furious drive towards accomplishing something, and the other side is anger. almost like using negativity to fuel a positive creation. See, then we get to points like that where there are 3-note chords in our right hand, triads, and there are 3 numbers on top of it, and they look like where they should be, 1, 2, and 4 for like one of them, and then 1, 2, and 5. That looks about how I would play those chords. So I wonder if that's what it is. It just, there were some parts in the beginning where I didn't think that was what it was dictating, because it made no sense to be shifting the keys that way. I'm not a pianist though. So so we talk about fermatas a lot. Look at that symbol in the bottom right, the dot with the line over it, or the dot with the line under it for being under the thing. That's a fermata. You just hold that out. I guess we did. That was quiet. The sheer precision on this. Back again to like chromatic atonality. And now we're in our fugue. This is a heavy counterpoint section. I'm trying to picture, like, some of this stuff's been bonkers, but this specifically, I'm just trying to imagine different fingers are going to have different melodies. There's 4 melodies going on. Well, there were, now we're down to 3. But it's not even like 1 melody per hand. Like a little lullaby bringing us down. A lot of dissonance in our outro here. Inversion of the theme. Augmentation of the theme. What in the world? Tranquil. Yeah, after what you just pulled off. I was gonna say, this is our non-legato triple F. Give that power, let's go. And that should be the end of it. That feels like an ending. Man, the bass just ringing out there as well. Wow. Wow. So this was fascinating. Um, it is incredibly dense. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I missed on a first time listen. If you've analyzed this song up and down, or if you've checked out other scripted analysis videos rather than first time listen analysis videos, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff that you know that I didn't pick up on. So, if you decide to comment, please go a little easy on me. I'm trying real hard to understand what happened in here with one listen. Um, wow. So, I think I want to break this up into two parts, composition and performance, because these are two different people and they both bring something different to the table. And then I'm going to have a couple of my own thoughts based on the sheet music itself, because I got some questions there. It seems very open ended, honestly. That brings up questions about uh, where the sheet music came from, and if it is quite authentic. It brings into question some of Godowsky's styles of sheet music transcription. So let's start with the composition itself. This is a phenomenal piece. I don't even want to bring in the performative side of it yet, even though it seems like something that would require more than two hands in a lot of places. According to this, it's one person, though, Siirala. And like I said, we'll get into some of this on the performance side. Um, but I've talked about in the past that when it comes to classical music, what kind of separates it from other contemporary styles? And I say that classical music's still contemporary to me, especially with classical music still being created today. But we'll rephrase that. For other modern mainstream types of music, how you play it is just as important, if not more important, than playing it correctly. Um, but for this song, just playing it at all seems to be a task. Much much less playing it with the proper inflections and control and flow that I think the composer intended. And I say intended, maybe with a question mark at the end of it. Again, like I almost want to like just toss all these together, but I think it's just going to be better if we separate these concepts into different sections. There is a lot of stuff going on at any one time. It's not even just chords and melodies that are complex. There are at times when one hand must do two things. Sometimes one hand will play melody and foundational ideas. Sometimes a hand will play two melodies at the same time. The fugue for sure landed in some of these places where I swear we had 4 lines going in counterpoint with only 2 hands. Like, it is incredibly dense, but it also explores a lot. We have at least 2 key changes. I know we shifted once when we brought in the 5 sharps. Those were the hashtags on the left. And we started and ended, I think, with 2 of the sharps over on the left. So there was, like I said, at least 2 key changes in here. But even within those key changes, our composer decided that that was not good enough. And so we had a lot of accidentals in this track. And an accidental is when you put a flat or a sharp sign next to a specific note to let you know that this isn't A, it's A sharp or it's A flat. Regardless of what your key tells you, regardless of what those symbols on the left side of the staff tell you, this is actually not sharp as it's indicated. We also have a sign for neutral. So if it says you're supposed to play an A sharp and Godowsky wants you to play an A, you can put a neutral sign next to it to let you know. And then we also have like double flat and double sharp, but like that's getting real weird. So we're going to just stop here. Sharp, flat, neutral. Those are accidentals when you put them in to override what the key states. There's a ton of that in here at all points in time. A majority of time we saw that when Godowsky wanted to enter an element of chromaticism or atonality, where we were either working with the chromatic scale, which is every note, rather than selecting specific notes for the key, or atonality, which is kind of the same thing, but not necessarily chromatic. It just means we're not looking specifically at a key. Chromatic key is a key, atonality is not. And these sections were frequently used to induce a ton of dissonance, but also to evoke concepts of spiraling or descents, any sort of loss of control, which I think is really interesting how often those showed up. They weren't constantly there, but it wasn't a one-off thing either. The other thing I really want to point out here is time, I think. I don't know if there is necessarily polymeter going on here, but I noticed in many places the phrase started and stopped not at a downbeat. And that's usually a clear indication of a polymetric concept, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there is one going on in here. A majority of this track takes place in 3/4, I think, in most places, but once we start putting 17 and 18 notes into a bar, I don't have time to count that to make sure we're adding up to 4 beats of quarter notes. But when things do kind of slow down a little bit, we seem to be in 3. As the style of music suggested at the beginning when I described it, Passacaglia utilizes bass ostinatos. I tried to point those out, but without some way to physically point at it, I probably should. If I had known beforehand this was going to be sheet music, I might have like made my mouse cursor really large and something that wasn't white, and so maybe I could like point to things on the screen. That would have been pretty cool. But the way that piano, when you're working with something like this, you have 2 staves. Your top one is going to be treble, which is typically your right hand, and the bottom one is going to be bass, which is typically your left hand. And if we bring this up, I hope this is big enough. Hey, all I wanted to do was show a picture. Okay, so in the very top left, You see this little like straight line with like this like swirly thing going on here? So that is the treble clef sign. And then the other one looks like a very elongated backward C with two dots on its right. That is the bass clef signifier. So there your treble clef, which is your higher stuff, your bass clef, which is your lower stuff, usually right hand and left hand. And that's why these staves are set up like this, right? We usually have a treble and then a bass and then a treble and a bass, and we just like reading in English, you start in the top left and then read left to right, go down to the next line, read left to right. I probably should have went over all this, how to read sheet music at the beginning, but maybe that would have just been more confusing. There was one part though that I just kind of dropped my jaw. I think it was in the fugue. Yep, right here. So our top two lines are both treble. Our bottom two lines are treble and bass. But as you can see on the left, we have a bracket that says left hand. So presumably, each hand is dealing with two staves at one time, two sets of music incoming. This just was just like, what are you trying to make these people do? Yeah, so that was just kind of bonkers. So I kind of like went over some of the stuff that I saw on the sheet music. What I heard was this really interesting journey. I don't know what it meant. I don't really have a nice overarching tale that, an overarching shifting of emotions that I could work into some sort of story or anything like that. But we explore a lot of really cool emotions. There's victory. There we start off with melancholy. I thought that was an interesting place to start with. There are concepts of spiraling and descent. There are rises. These really nice, quick, like 64th note, like 10 notes in a row, going from a low note to a high note. It's very majestic. And when we hit this high note, we have this big explosive moment. Feels very triumphant. We also have a lot of mixed emotion areas. I feel like once the song really took off, like around the 10-minute mark, everything before that was a lot of exploring single emotion ideas or mixing emotions for very clear concepts. But after this, we started mixing emotions for, well, at least to me, they're less clear what they were supposed to be saying. There was that one part that I had talked about where the right hand was playing something that was very in the process of achieving greatness, like a spark of brilliance, but the left hand was very heavy and weighty and aggressive, and it just kind of felt like anger to me. And I didn't know how to reconcile that. I think I came up with the concept of like using anger to, for positivity and having it fuel your passions or something like that. But honestly, that's just me kind of grasping at straws. What could these two emotions be together? I don't really know if that's what was going on there. What I find fascinating is that regardless of the fact that we explored a dozen emotions and complex emotions throughout this song, everything flows beautifully. I don't really think there was any moment when I felt an idea wasn't either foreshadowed properly or transitioned into properly. Everything had a really nice cohesive element to it that brings everything together into a fascinating, cohesive work of art. Just beautiful stuff. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on the composition side. Oh, yeah. Just the bonkers amount of notes, and you know how I mentioned earlier that the Godowsky really wanted these ridiculously complex performance aspects, right? Really looks like some of these sections need more than two hands to perform. Also, really is quite demanding on dynamics. There are a ton of markings about how to play everything. And this is going to bleed over, which I think is a nice segue into the performative side. But there's that one part that I pointed out, and it was like four notes back to back, all at completely different volumes. And it wasn't a gradual rise or like a stepwise rise where we would start small, get a little bigger, get a little bigger, than like the loudest. It was kind of like bouncing all over the place. And going into it, there was uh, a, a note about how the notes should be played, not just volume wise, but smoothness or speed or anything like that. And that was shifting. And when we came out the other side, it had a very different sound to it. And it's just a very demanding track on every level. Like I said at the beginning, and I hope I've explained it in the last 5 or 10 minutes, however long I've been talking about this. While normally I say a lot of classical music is hyper dependent on playing it properly, not so much on just learning to play it, this is an extremely demanding track just to learn to play before you even get into any of the nuance. And the nuance is what I want to talk about when it comes to the performance side. I would love to see a video of Siirala playing this, or anybody who plays it like Siirala would, or I guess better said would be similarly to how Siirala would. Um, just because I can't even imagine it in some places, it is just bonkers. Some sections feel like they require more than two hands. There's so many places with like perfect dynamic control where you're controlling the speed of the song as well as the flow of the song as well as the volume of the song. And all of this is tying into the emotional aspect, which you really need to understand to lean into. And it is just a phenomenal display of passion and dedication to a single track. I keep saying track, even though this is classical, but whatever. I hope you guys are good with that. We just usually talk about music that's on discs, so a lot of mainstream music. So I don't really get a lot of chance to refine my vocabulary for classical specifically. So I'm just gonna keep calling it a track. You just got to be cool with that. Um, dang, I just broke my train of thought. Um, but yeah, it's a wonderful performance that showcases dedication to the. Okay, so that's where I was going. Um, I can only imagine the thousands of hours it took practicing this and perfecting it. And here's the sad thing, or the human thing, however you want to look at it. This is a phenomenal performance. I can't find any flaw with it. If you ask Siirala, especially if he's feeling humble, I don't know him personally, so some people would never say this, especially in an interview, but he would probably tell you, and he probably has some notes for himself, where he feels like in this recorded performance he could have done better. And I think that's always important to remember, especially if you're a performer yourself. No performance is perfect. We are human. We make errors. The more complex and lengthy a song is, or a concert or performance is, increases the chances for imperfection. And while none of us might be able to pick up some of those things, I bet there's, like I said, he has some notes. Something he flubbed or didn't lean into the way he wanted to, and it sounds phenomenal to my ears, but he was really upset about. Um, so yeah, just I can't even wrap my head. Like I said, I'm not a pianist to begin with, but I'm just looking at this and trying to imagine my fingers and just trying to figure out how I would perform this, and it's just kind of there's so much to it. I just want to wrap this up real quick with some notes about the sheet music. Um, it is dense. I had talked about how my sight reading was a bit rusty. I'm surprised I picked up as much as I did and I could follow along fairly easily, which I wasn't too concerned about. But there is a lot of stuff to keep track of. This is certainly something you would want to memorize. It is something that's going to become a part of your muscle memory. It's going to become a part of your soul. You're going to be able to perform this in your sleep. This is not something you're going to try to sight read, or not sight read, but read on the day of your. Hey, there is a double sharp in here. I don't remember that. This isn't going to be something you try to read on your recital. You're going to perform it from memory. I'm still not too sure about the numbers. The more I look at them, they do seem like telling which digits should be used to play which notes. It is 80% consistent for me. There are some sections that feel very strange for that, but for the most part, if there's three notes, there's three digits. They never go above five. And as far as I can envision, actually, I have a keyboard here if I wanted to. As far as I can envision, though, these are the right digits I would use to play these chords or to play these runs. But I think that's my only concern. If somebody, especially a pianist, has experience with this and they can tell me, I'm all ears on this. There's also those, I don't know, it looks like cursive, but it's either a very fancy cursive or it is another very flowy writing style for possibly another language. I don't know. Um, and it's under all of it. Let me see if I can point this real. It's all over the place. It kind of looks like Leo with a tail that goes up and over the E into the L. Yeah, it's really hard to see on that. Maybe if you're watching this full screen on like a monitor or a TV, but on a phone, I highly doubt you'll be able to see these. But they're under every bar for both staves. Well, no, they're under every bar underneath the bass staff. Um, I don't know what those are supposed to be. They're not consistent. Maybe those are accents? No. We do have a symbol for an accent. It's the caret. It's like an arrow pointing up. Um, I've never seen that before though. I love these moments. I just happen to be here. At the very top it says molto espressivo, just like very expressive. And these moments like just leans into it. And I'm really curious. Let me see right back at the beginning. Yeah, there. Oh, so we are in 3/4. That never changes. I don't know how I missed that. And our tempo is andante moderato, which is about 100 beats per minute. The tempo is very flowy throughout this. Sometimes it feels like we really slow it down. Sometimes it feels like we really speed it up. I don't see tempo markings. When this happened, sometimes I would see some sort of notes about the speed up or the slowdown, but it wasn't always there. So I wonder how much of this is the performer's expression, Siirala's, and how much of it is some sort of notes passed down from Godowsky. Wow, I can't believe I did the D first on that. Um, that have just kind of like been known. This is what he intended. Um, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. This is a this is a bonkers performance. It is a beautiful piece of music. It is, well, I'll be honest, it did go over my head in quite a few places, but we've listened to a lot of 10, 15, 20, 30-minute tracks. I don't think time has ever gone so fast as it did here. This is one of the fastest listens that I've ever had of an almost 20-minute track. Time just went by. This was so fun to check out. This part right here, God, man. I keep looking at the more I look at the sheet music, the more insane it is. Like this composer, dude. And then somebody decided to play it by themselves. Anyways, let me let me wrap this up. I need to listen to this again if I want to dig in any deeper. I know this is a very surface level read of it, but I hope I pointed out some really neat things that even if you're not a musician, you can't read sheet music, maybe you didn't really know what you're supposed to listen to, you don't listen to classical very often. I hope I kind of pointed to some things that can get you interested into this. Like I said, I know I'll be listening to it again. There's so much stuff I know I missed. And I'll probably be reading some other stuff. Oh, there's like a whole paragraph here in the description. We got timestamps for stuff. Is this pinned? I don't know if this is pinned or not. It's a top comment for me, though. This thing had 44 variations on a theme. Oh, theme. I forgot that the end of the fugue also mentioned augmented and inverted themes. I never picked up a theme. Like I said, it was very dense for a first listen. Apparently, the entire Passacaglia is variations on a theme. You get about 17 seconds with the theme, and then you get a variation on it, then another variation, another variation. I did not pick up on that at all. Yeah, there's a lot of really good information underneath this video in the comments and the description. If you're interested in more, there's some good information there. I'll be checking that out later for sure. Let's wrap this up. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought of this track, if you enjoyed it or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to ask me about or correct me on or expand on what I stated. I don't know. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. I'll read and respond to all of them as I always do. I still read comments from like videos 2 years ago. I read everything. Above the comment section is a description box. In there is a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel. You can find my music. You can find a link to the Discord community server. You can find a link to ways to support the channel and so much more. Go ahead and check that out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps us up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, finishing up our best of 2022. As well as checking out a special selection and a new track that just came out from one of my favorite bands. So until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.